Chapter 18 of the Great Wide Sea. Hundreds of islands make up Bahamas, and in 6 months we have only seen a handful. In Nassau, Dad had laid the chart out on the table. To the east were Easthiarna and Cat Island. To the south, Long Island and Esquimalt. Even farther south were the last scattered pecks of the Bahamian territory. Crooked and Auckland's islands, Mayaguna, and Great and Little Inaguna. Still farther south was the little nation of Turks and Caicos. Among these last scraps of land were islands where only a few people lived, as well as those occasional cays with no people at all, and no names either. There was no natural fresh water and no way to grow food. A boater couldn't stop and provision or fill up with water or fuel because there wasn't any. We had 6 months left. Dad didn't want to waste the time on the desert island. He decided to skip the southern Bahamas. Instead, we sailed north to the Berries. There's not much there, just one island, and after another strung out in a slow curve for 25 miles from Chub Cay in the south to the Great Stirrup Cay in the north. Almost nobody lives there, just birds and lizards and conch and lobster. The Berries are lonely and beautiful. It was there that we had the golden day. In my memory, this day is the brightest, a day with sunshine sparkling around our eyes, with glitter in the sand and with water dancing blue and clear all around the edges. The perfect day. The day before, we had taken our longest sail since crossing the banks. The last 2 hours were in the rolling seas. We wedged ourselves in the cockpit to keep in one place, but Jerry was too short. Finally, I just held him on my lap. We stared over the rails and waited for it to be over. At last, we were abreast of the turn and could clearly see the rock we were supposed to beware of. Dylan was shouting degrees through the companionway, and Dad was barking back. "Double check that course, Dylan. That can't be right." Then Dad turned on the engine to be sure it was ready when we got set to anchor, but it didn't start. So he started yelling at me, and I started yelling at him. Dylan was quiet, and Jerry was rolling around in the cockpit. It was really fun. Then we turned Chrysalis bow into Little Harbor. In an instant, the rolling stopped. All those waves were blocked by a long, low island beside us. And in the middle was a calm, green pool of ocean, the edges looking gently against the circle of the little islands surrounding us. We were quiet. We glided in under jib along. Dad didn't yell. I scrambled to the bow and laid out the anchor chain. Dylan stood on alert beside the jib halyard. Quietly, Dad said, "Dylan," and Dylan released the halyard. The jib tumbled in billows onto the deck. He gathered it neatly inside the lifelines. We were quiet again for a minute. "Ben," Dad said, and I let the anchor go. The chain rattled out of the anchor locker, and I counted the markers going by. 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. Dad said nothing. I saw the anchor sink to the sandy bottom. I snagged it tight. Chrysalis swung gently on her chain and slowly turned her bow into the wind. The quiet rolled over us like liquid. We sat there, just looking out at the little circle of islands and feeling the gentle leftovers of breeze. It was peaceful. It was perfect. It was ours alone. The next day, we slept late. Even Dad. And I woke up only when I heard a voice calling. "Hello, hello, ahoy, Chrysalis." I heard Dad knocking against the hull as he woke up. He was at the companionway before I had pushed off my covers. By the time I sat up, he and Dylan were already on deck, but I heard voices. "The worst that could happen. Bahamian man said, and I was on deck too. He stood in his dinghy, rowed by a single paddle astern, and held on the chrysalis gunwale. Beside us now, in our perfect anchor range, was a Bahamian fishing boat. On the deck, several fishermen lounged and watched their mate. "The worst that can happen, man," he said. "We have forgotten to bring the sugar for the tea." Dad laughed. He threw back his head and laughed. "Sugar?" he said. "I thought someone was dying. Ben, go get these guys some sugar. Lots of sugar." Dad and I looked at each other. He had said dying. He had laughed. I came back up with an unopened 3-pound bag of sugar. Behind me came Jerry, wiping his eyes with blankie. "Thanks, man," said the Bahamian. He looked at us. "These are yours, man?" "Every one," Dad said. "You lucky," the fisherman said. "We catch some lobster, we'll bring you some." "Sure," Dad said. "Sure." The fisherman rowed away, standing in his boat, pushing the stern paddle from right to left and cradling the sugar in the crook of his arm. Dad turned to us, smiling. "Coffee?" he said, and the perfect day began. What was so perfect about it? Just that it was. Dylan and I spent the morning in the dinghy, puttering around the edge of one of our sheltering islands. Dylan was watching the bottom, looking for conch. After lunch, we took Jerry with us, and he leaned over to look up, too. Round at the end of one of the islands in the circle, out there was the great wide sea, green and glittering and calm. To our right was a sudden crescent of sand, no more than 10 feet long. We beached the dinghy and sat there, the three of us alone, looking out to the sea. And in that moment, I imagined we were the only ones on Earth. From what we sat in our miniature temporary beach, it was an easy thing to imagine. Except for the dinghy and the tiny whiff of exhaust and gas, there was no sign of human life. Before us lay the ocean. Behind and around us, a little scrub island. No dead, no chrysalis, no nothing. Just us and the waves and the fiddler crabs and the conch. I lay down and looked at the sky, and something in me felt light enough to rise up right up with the clouds and go spinning off like some kind of crazy wild dance. I jumped up. "Let's swim. Come on, Jerry. I'll teach you." "Just a little, Ben," he said cautiously. I felt so soft inside. "Okay, buddy. Bare butts, everyone." So we stripped, laughing and poking my brother's skinny white butt. Looked like little rabbits behind as they hopped into the water. Jerry reached out for Dylan's hand and Dylan took it. They didn't look at each other. It was just electricity, I guess. I remember Mom doing that. She could be looking 180 degrees away, and Jerry's hand would go out and hers would be right there, like she had some kind of radar or something. When I saw her in my mind like that, it wasn't sadness I felt, it was joy, and this sudden bolt of joy. So I ran into the water and tackled Dylan and splashed Jerry. I yelled and they started screaming and splashing. Jerry's head got wet before he thought about it, and he was pushing himself on the bottom with his hands and kicking his feet. "You're swimming!" we yelled like wild hyenas, and launched ourselves backwards into the water. I picked up Dylan like a baby and pitched him, thrashing and howling, back into the water. He came up laughing and wanting more. Jerry carefully tried coming deeper. "You want me to throw you?" I asked. No. So I didn't, just like that, because he said no. Okay, I'll hold you up to practice swimming. But I could see he didn't trust me. So Dylan held him. I watched and played cheerleader. Do your arms like this? Now kick. Try floating on your back. It's just like sleeping. Hold your arms up. Stick up your chin. Before too long, Jerry was ready for Dylan to let go. But he sank. Snatched him up, and he came up with his eyes big and round and scared, wiping water off his face with his palms, blowing and puffing, not crying. I think we beat Mom's record for the fastest sinking ever, Dylan said, and we laughed. Want to try again? I asked. He shook his head. And I remembered something, like when you catch a whiff of something and your brain starts clicking like a motor trying to start, but it can't. Click, and then it was lost. This time it felt like a cool breeze in the summer heat or a touch of shade in the summer sun. Something in it felt like closing my eyes and just drifting in cool calm. But I lost it as it floated away. I thought something in it was about Mom. I waded back out of the water and sat on the beach, propping my arms on my knees, watching Dylan and Jerry play until I found myself staring at the sand between my knees and felt Dylan's fingers on my head. They sat there on either side of me. The quiet grew. A seagull squawked. The tiny waves kissed the beach. The lizards slithered behind us. Come on, Dylan said. Tide's coming in. I looked up and saw that the ocean was crowding out our little beach. The sand crescent was almost gone. Quietly, we launched the dinghy. Quietly, we puttered to the boat. Quietly, we watched the sunset. When night came, we sat in the cockpit with Dad and ate lobster with the fishermen we had brought while we were playing in the water. Everyone had his own lobster tail. It was way too much. We were dripping butter down our chins, and Dad was laughing at us. He kept telling Jerry to wipe his face and then wiping it for him. It was fun, sitting in the dark, dripping butter, and listening to Dad and Jerry laugh. Dad asked us to go about our exploring mission, and Dylan told him about seeing the conch and finding the beach and going swimming. Ben made us take off our clothes, Jerry said suddenly. You swam naked? Dad said, pretending to be shocked. Jerry nodded. It was weird. But you like to swim naked, Dad said. I remember, Dylan said. The beach at the lake? Dad nodded. Remember that green swimsuit with motorboats all over it? Boy, did I remember. Jerry wouldn't wear anything else when he was 2, and it was way too big. Dad was wiping the butter off his fingers. Then he turned and took Jerry's hand and started gently wiping his fingers one by one. Once upon a time, Dad said, there was a boy named Jerry who always wore a green motorboat suit when he played in the water. Now Jerry had a teeny tiny baby bottom, and every time he stood up in the water, his swimsuit slipped right over his behind and down to his knees. An old man, who was Jerry's dad, fussed at the beautiful woman who was Jerry's mom. Did Dad really stop to catch his breath, or did I imagine it? The boy needs his string tied, the old man said. Poor Jerry came to him, crying, dragging the swimsuit around his ankles. The old man hoisted the suit, adjusted it around that teeny waist, and pulled on the strings. Nothing happened. The strings were just decoration. Just go without, growled the old man. But little Jerry refused. He cried and tried to play in the water while desperately holding up his soup. The beautiful lady laughed. The old man laughed. And little Jerry cried and cried. Then Dad really did stop talking. He turned and looked straight at me. And suddenly, Dad said, out of nowhere, Jerry's biggest brother. Within a second, the brother's suit was off, and he had tossed it in a ball to the beautiful lady. He scooped up little Jerry. The middle brother caught Jerry's swimsuit as it fell to the water, and then stripped off his own suit and brought them to his mom. And the three boys marched into the water butt naked. And the mom and dad weren't laughing. They were smiling and being very careful not to look at each other because their eyes were all glittery. Then the lovely lady's fingers touched the old man's hand without turning her head. She said, very quietly, I'm sure glad there's no one else at the beach today. And then they laughed and laughed, and the boys played and played. That's the end of the story of how Jerry learned how to swim naked. The end. Is that true? Jerry said. Every word, Dad said, and leaned back to gaze at the sky. Iron, he said. Dylan, look, there's iron. Dylan looked. We all looked. Iron was bright, especially his belt. I closed my eyes. That was the golden day. Afterward, I remembered iron and the dripping butter. I remembered the naked butts skipping into the water. I remembered the splashing, backwards free falls. I remembered that I had almost remembered and wondered what it was I had lost.